Welcome back to Turning the Page. I'm Donnie Morris of Confetti Antiques and Books, and we have with us here James Dark of BYU, the film curator, his archive curator. James, before we went to commercial, I was telling you about a movie that I was in, and I was in a movie in Provo with Anthony Hopkins and Mickey Rourke, Desperate Hours, shot in Utah. How many movies were shot in Utah? I see here in the back of the book an enormous list. It just goes on and on and on. How many total movies have we seen shot here in Utah?
Well, and that's one of the many surprises that readers will find in the book, is of feature films, television movies, and television series episodes. What I've chronicled from 1913 through the end of 2009, just last year, over 800 titles, Donnie.
800 different movies shot in Utah. That's got to be, I mean, that's got to bring an enormous amount of money to our economy.
Well, it does, and that's one of the things that surprised me, why a history like this hadn't been written. I mean, there are Utah history books on politics, recreation, settlement, exploration, military expeditions, all kinds of things, but not movie making. Is that because people perceive movies coming and going, that they're just light entertainment and there's no real story there? You know, you can go through all kinds of reasons why people don't think Hollywood movie history is Utah history. But I'm here to tell you that Hollywood movie history is Utah history, and it has pumped hundreds of millions of dollars into the Utah economy over the years.
I can agree with that. James, tell us a little bit about what people are saying about your book. When you're out meeting people, what are they telling you about your book?
I've had a lot of people say, you know, I've watched these movies when I was a little boy or a little girl, or my father supplied horses to the movies or acted as an extra. So your book just isn't a book about the movies, it's part of our family's history.
Oh.
Others will say, I had no idea all this happened in Utah. And they would point to this picture or that picture and say, I didn't know that was made here.
Speaking of which,
so
right
the reaction
here,
is surprise.
Right on the cover here, this is the movie that I was in right there. It's on the cover right there, Desperate Hours, Mickey Rourke. Everybody seems to do that when they pick it up. They flip through and say, oh yeah, this is the movie that my dad was in,
That's
or that
right.
my uncle was in, or that, you know.
And there's another aspect to this. You know, in Utah, we love to talk in terms of pioneer stories. Well, what pioneer stories do you have in the 20th century? The story of Hollywood movie making in Utah is a pioneer story. In what way? Well, the pioneers who had already come attracted those who had never been here before, the movie studios. So I call it a pioneer story in reverse. The Perry brothers brought the Hollywood folks in, and they kept coming back and back and back. Now, they didn't stay, but as one Moab rancher told me, he said, you know, the great thing about the movie industry coming to Utah, all they took were pictures, and all they left was money.
Besides Utah, what other scenes has movies in Utah been used to represent?
Oh, this is one of the fascinating surprises of Hollywood movie making in Utah. Utah, in all these various movies, 800 or so, has stood in for Arabia,
Really?
the Holy Land, for the greatest story ever told, Beijing, Illinois, Texas, Missouri, Upper New York State during the Revolutionary War, John Ford's Drums Along the Mohawk.
Really?
Yeah. The trackless wilderness of Timbuktu, and a host of other areas, even another planet. And you say, what? What planet?
I know this one. Planet of the Apes. No, because that was Earth.
That's right. Galaxy Quest.
Oh. Oh, yes, yes.
When they open that little exploratory craft and they say, is this an alien planet? Well, of course, the answer to that is, yes, it is. And a psychologist might say, well, if Utah represents all these areas, doesn't Utah have an identity crisis? To which I would say, that's no problem. Hollywood found it useful, and they came back and back and back and back for our benefit, for the people of Utah.
even today, then, like the Perry brothers, the state actually has an organization that goes out and tries to promote filmmaking in Utah.
That's right. That's right. And Lee Von Der Esch, who is the head of the Office of Tourism, was for 20 years film commissioner of Utah. And I'm having her come speak at our BYU Motion Picture Archive film series on November 19th when we show Thunder in the Valley, a movie made in southern Utah. She's going to talk about the history of movie making in Utah and how they are attempting to attract filmmakers nowadays to the state of Utah. Now, so many other states have realized movie making is a big, lucrative business, that it's a very competitive enterprise now. And Utah is competing with all the other states of the union at this point.
Well, we do have such a wide variety of landscape that it really helps. I mean, you can come here and, like you say, you can get all those different
That's right.
areas right here locally.
And what I hope to impart in this book are the broad shoulders that today's filmmakers in Utah have to stand on. This is a great heritage. And not only do filmmakers need to know about this, both in and out of the state, but I think people in the state of Utah need to know about this. There's a great deal of state pride that we can take in how many movies have been made here and the great memories that filmmakers have when they leave. Think about it from another aspect. The Utah Office of Tourism would not have the budget to do the kind of publicity that a film like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid made, or The Greatest Story Ever Told, or The Desperate Hours would have. You can't pay for that kind of favorable publicity.
True.
And when you go down to Monument Valley, or to Grand Canyon, or to Bryce Canyon, Zion Canyon, you see a lot of foreign visitors, and you ask them, why'd you come here? Oh, this is where Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid was filmed, or this is where The Searchers was filmed, or She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, or Stagecoach. It's the movies that bring so many of these travelers here that allow our state to have such a great economy.
One of the greatest actors of all time, I think, is John Wayne. How many movies did he shoot here in Utah?
5 or 6.
Really?
Beginning in 1939 with the famous John Ford Western Stagecoach. But then therein lies a tale. Yes, that is trumpeted because of the beautiful Monument Valley buttes that John Ford loved and used ever since. But the Monument Valley footage in Stagecoach comprises 1% of the total running time of Stagecoach. 97 seconds. And yet, what is the enduring image that comes out of Stagecoach? Monument Valley. Is there any other question then about the importance of Utah in the movies? The rest of that movie was made in California.
Really?
But the image is Utah. The
Utah.
image is Monument Valley.
Yeah.
So he kept coming back after that, and Monument Valley almost became his own private preserve on which to make movies.
Well, I know there that, like Zion's National Park and that, it's actually quite difficult now to get permission to go film there.
Virtually impossible to film in the national parks. And again, that's what makes these Utah filmed movies Utah history. You will see landfall topography and watersheds in so many locations in these old movies filmed in Utah that no longer look like that. Duck Creek, parts of Zion National Park, and so many other areas, Kanab Canyon, where Best Friends Animal Sanctuary is now, they don't look the way they did for generations. No one took the time to take movie footage of those areas for historical purposes. So when we preserve these Hollywood movies filmed in Utah, we are preserving a very unique part of Utah's geographical history.
I agree. You were telling me before, off camera actually, about a Utah Centennial movie that was done, and that, tell us a little bit about that, would you?
Well, I think one of the surprises in the book is most Utahns don't know that when Utah had its centennial in 1947, they chose and designated a movie made in Utah that year as Utah's centennial movie. And I'll give a hint. It starred the great Western actor Joel McCrea And the girl with the peekaboo curl, Veronica Lake,
Oh.
co-starred her. And it was a Western.
Now, I think you have a whole chapter on that, don't you?
An entire chapter. And the choice of that film spurred a very heated verbal debate in the state legislature between members of the House and members of the Utah Senate. And it also involved a tug-of-war with the state of Colorado, who claimed, no, that's not your film. That's our film.
To find out about the title of that movie and to learn about it, people need to pick up your book. Again, When Hollywood Came to Town, A History of Movie Making in Utah by James Dark. James, before we wrap it up, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do at BYU? Because I know a lot of people who are watching will want to be involved and get interested with what you do.
I'd love to. I'm the curator of the BYU Motion Picture Archive, where we have original motion picture prints. And we make these available to the general public free. Once a month, we have film screenings in the theater in the Harold B. Lee Library Auditorium, right in the middle of the BYU campus. 7 p.m., one Friday a month. And all this, the rest of this year, we are featuring films made in Utah that I've dealt with in the book.
Where does BYU stand as far as the film archive? I mean, nationally, where are they ranked? Or do they even rank them? I don't know.
Well, the L. Tom Perry Special Collections has one of the largest collections of motion picture memorabilia and original collections in the United States. For example, we have the original papers, correspondence, scripts, photographs of Jimmy Stewart, Andy Devine, Dean Jagger, who played Brigham Young in the old movie, director Marion C. Cooper, the man who conceived and directed the original King Kong. We have the collection of Max Steiner, who wrote the music to Gone with the Wind. In fact, in our vault, we have the original pencil score to Gone with the Wind, The Searchers, Treasure of the Sierra Madre, The Charge of the Light Brigade.
And how did BYU acquire these?
We went after them. We went after descendants and relatives, and probably one of the largest collections we have is that of Cecil B. DeMille, producer and director of The Ten Commandments. That collection is DeMillian in proportions, 1,200 boxes of correspondence, production notes, 7,000 pieces of production artwork, storyboards, scene renderings, many of them by the great Utah artist Arnold Freeberg. So it's a massive collection of prime Hollywood history.
So I assume now at this point that there's actually people searching you out to want to donate or to give to the collection at this point.
That's correct. We are very busy with researchers, scholars, filmmakers, documentarians, and we are also a very coveted place to take care of these kinds of materials. So our mission is to preserve the best of the past so that those filmmakers, authors, and storytellers will have the best of the past from which to study to ensure high-quality material in the future.
James, I want to thank you for coming with us today on Turning the Page. The title of James's book, When Hollywood Came to Town, A History of Movie Making in Utah. James, what a wonderful book. It is just fascinating to read and to study and to learn all about this early Utah history and what it meant to those that lived here. We want to thank you again for being here. This is Turning the Page. I'm host Donnie Morse. Thanks again for being with us.